Hey everyone, I'm Katie. I'm the Director of Programming here at Wicked Queer, and welcome to our Queer Docs Q&A. I'm so excited to have John all the way in Australia, and it's 2 a.m. to join us. And then we have the Star of Powers documentary. We have Lori here. So thank you guys so much for hopping on. Really appreciate it. First, John, my question first is, how did you even discover Mellow?
Well, I created this doco as a part of a series of eight different people I decided to feature. And so I found Mello through his social media, along with a friend of mine who worked with me on the project, who is a casting director. And so we kind of just scale people's social media to find young activists.
Are all the activists in your pieces queer, or is it just whoever you came upon, or?
It was whoever we came upon, yeah, and that was mainly through the series was created during the pandemic, and so it came through either where I was located in the world. I moved to Mexico, and so I ended up working with a couple of the indigenous tribes there, and worked with a person who, so just varied people.
Awesome. Lori, how about you? How did even this documentary and you connecting with Paige come about?
So it all happened with Paige. I was an anonymous artist before she came on the scene, and during the pandemic, a lot of people were starting to walk around their neighborhoods and getting to actually see what is going on in different neighborhoods. And she and her husband and her two daughters were walking around my neighborhood. She lives a little north of me, and she noticed these characters on telephone poles. And she came up to just happened to walk into the front yard, saw some art that looked similar colors to what was on the poles. And I was coming out the front door, and she said, "Are you the artist who does the artwork on the poles?" And I decided to say yes. I usually say no. So that it stays anonymous, but for some reason there was this connection, like instantaneously. I said yes, and I invited her into my studio, and she says, "Oh, I'd love to make a documentary about this." And I said, "Well, we could think about it." And slowly, through the process of getting to know her over a year and a half, of all these interviews, I let her put the documentary out.
And both of you seem to have filmed during COVID, is that correct? Can you,
Yes.
John, let's start with you, talk about it, and did you find it maybe helped a little getting through the pandemic, having something creative to work on?
Absolutely. I'm a commercial photographer and director. And so all my projects fell away. And for me, it was a way to collaborate with people. And even though the filming, I ended up having to film everything myself. So I'm a cinematographer, director. My partner would come along, and he would have a clipboard with all my questions, and we would have a couple hours with each of the subjects to shoot the interviews and B-roll. And then I'd go away, and I have an editor, so I taught myself editing. So I did everything, and so I totally immersed myself in this project. And I think to kind of walk away in hindsight with these beautiful short films have been like, it was so nice to kind of walk away with something. So yeah, a creative project like this.
Cool. And what about you, Lori?
What was the question for me?
You guys filmed during COVID, right? Did that help at all, having something to do? You had a mask on, so I just was under the impression that you filmed during COVID.
Well, for me, I was doing the same thing I was always doing. So
Yep.
that's probably more of a Paige question. You know, industry had shut down, or people are filmmakers, which, you know, includes Paige. For me, life just continued on. You know, I made art regardless. And I think for her, it was a fantastic outlet of having a project that just came before her and deciding she was going to take it on. And, you know, she did everything. She shot it from her iPhone, which I think is like fantastic. She, she edited the film. She came down, she shot, she reshot. So I think for her, it was very cathartic to have this project, drop on her and her to say, oh, look at this. This is something that I can do during COVID. And I'm sure that, as, she's an actor and a director and a writer, that because there wasn't, availability of other people to work on the project, that she honed many skills and became very skillful at things she normally wouldn't have done, such as editing.
So was the whole thing filmed on an iPhone?
Yeah, it was all on an iPhone.
That's amazing. I love
It
that.
is amazing.
It's so
From what
funny.
I hear, I'm not a filmmaker, but I saw it at the Cleveland Film Festival, last week up on the big screen, and I was like, wow, this was
It's amazing what you can do. I'm a professor in film,
amazing.
and it's just how far the things have come, and like you can literally make a movie on your iPhone and it can be seen around the world. That's awesome.
Yeah. And kudos to Paige for, just having the tenacity, to just stick with the project, because I'm sure what happened is that it initially started as this idea, this concept, I'm going to do this, but then, you get hundreds of hours of film. And as I said, she was just filming me doing my thing. So, and then kudos to all people though, who have to edit these things and determine what's going to be, what has to fall off, what gets to stay in. And I think she did a beautiful job.
And Lori, what finally made you decide to say, like, these are my pieces? Because you have been, you've been in the background and no one really knew for a while. What was kind of the catalyst to say, this is my work?
Yeah, I really like the idea of mystery in art, and I love public art. So having the art out there for everyone to see and benefit from was something that I really, really connected with. I connect with other, graffiti artists, that sort of thing, even though that, that's not my style, etc. And I think it was just through getting to know Paige, and during the pandemic, I really felt as I was working around the neighborhood that people really wanted to connect with whoever the artist was. And so I felt like I have enough of it out there. I'm getting all this great feedback. I'll start, outing myself a little bit with it. And the most beautiful thing that happened with that is that as people found out, they would leave small objects outside my studio door, like a nozzle or kitchen handles, and they'd leave their phone number and say, I'm giving you this for a character. And then I would incorporate that onto a character and text them and say, oh, your nozzle is on this character on these cross streets. And what it ended up doing is creating a web of art where everyone was connected to the art in the neighborhood. So everyone owns it, everyone's invested in it. And I couldn't ask for more, because it just, we have a special community now with all of the art that's around. Like, oh, you live down there in the Rosewood area where all the characters are on the poles. Yeah, so cool, man. And, and it's, that's what I wanted. I was hoping to build that. And yeah, it happened.
So are you allowed now to put them up and not have to do it incognito, or?
No.
Okay.
That's why this honestly is kind of brave in one way, because I'm actually risking having all this beauty that's out in the neighborhood now, I'm going like, oh, I think I take that down, but I don't think that will happen. I think I have enough. There's enough support in the neighborhood that it'll stay. The arts.
I love it. We'll advocate for you.
Thank you.
John, going back to you saying you basically did everything, including the cinematography. I loved how it was filmed. I loved all the B-roll shots and a lot of the slow-mo combined with the talking head of Mello, and also the use of color. It seemed like it had a little of a yellowish color. Can you talk about, one, the fact that you said you maybe only had a few hours to do that and how great it came out, and like how you filmed that stuff in a few hours, and two, the use of kind of the color that you used?
Sure. So I shot the film in LA, where I usually reside, and Mello was visiting from Atlanta. So we had a couple of phone interviews. I think I had a lunch with him, and we then had about a 45-minute interview, and I had then maybe about 2 hours to shoot the B-roll. And in that time, I did want to tell a story and a journey. So because again, we were shooting it during the pandemic, we were constrained as to like having to shoot everything outdoors. So I also did the sound, which I think at times gets a little hairy. And,
I feel like it was windy. I was like thinking, someone must have done some really good editing, because I know there's some wind in the background.
Yeah. Well, actually, unfortunately, I guess, I lost some of the interview, which was really hard to tell the story. And my story did kind of start off with wanting to tell, the stories to why people are part of certain organizations. And then it kind of came, I guess, in the editing process, I learned that I didn't want to talk about organizations. It was really about what made that person special and to tell their story. And that way the audience would then empathize or understand more about those people and what's made them. So that was kind of how, I guess, my editing process took place. But yeah, I also wanted to create a world for each of the subjects, and that came through the coloring, the grading.
Have a different color palette?
They all do, yeah.
Okay.
I'll share a couple with you.
So
I've got a couple more to finish editing.
Do you ever screen it as a whole, or is it?
I had to. So I've only entered 2 into festivals. So I'm here in Australia, and I have a very good relationship with the National Portrait Gallery here. Mm-hmm. So they were 2 of the films. The Mexican Story and Mello's was screened there. They were premiered there as a part of an artist talk that I did. Mm-hmm. But the others are slower. There are a few still in production, or post-production, I should say. But to your question, I shot it on a red, and so I had a friend who came along with, and he was my cameraman. And I had a bunch of old architectural lenses, shift tilt lenses, and that's how I created that kind of the in and out of focusness. Mm-hmm. And what else? And so I get it's really interesting that the color palette there has a real blue and red. And then the white, the highlights are all white, so I kind of shifted to yellow. But mm-hmm. Mello happened to wear that outfit, and that was what he came along with, this beautiful red outfit, and which just popped it. And we happened to be in Chinatown, and that's where the hustle bustle. And so
yeah, I love
it. A little bit of just coincidence.
Lori, what was it like being the actual subject of the documentary and first seeing kind of the final cut and seeing your story?
I liked a few things about it. One is I think she got my sense of humor, which is which was probably most important to me. She caught my sense of humor. Seeing myself on screen is, it's uncomfortable, you know, you're not used to it. I think that, certain scenes in there made me, when you watch them, they just make my throat close up and I go, and I try to hold on and get through it. And she, I really do trust her. She's like, no, this will be good. People need to see this and understand that journey, and it will help them with their own journey. And I was like, okay. And after I saw it, with my my son, because he was visiting from Northern California, and he was, all of his reactions were, they made me steadfast, and my daughter too, after she watched it. So then I'm like, okay, you can
They'll
let
be
this
honest
go.
critics.
It's like anything, once you let it go, you let it go. So you don't realize how much impacts you, from childhood or whatever, until you see that on screen and you're seeing a reflection of yourself and you're seeing like emotions you can't even you just still can't hide them. It's just part of you, but it also helps to make you who you are. So yeah, I'm okay about it now. I'm okay. It's
Have
cool.
you has it screened in theaters? Have you been able to sit in a theater and see it?
Yeah, there was the Cleveland Film Festival last week, and it was shown with 4 other shorts, some of them documentaries, some not.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, it's kind of surreal. I'm not an actor. I'm not I just do my little thing in my studio. So it was, it was wonderful. And I think what was really wonderful is after the question and answer session, people coming up and talking to me about the art, someone saying they're going to be in LA, could they come to my studio, how much it impacted them to actually, at their age, because, I'm a late blooming artist, I started very late, to do their own thing. Like, don't put it aside, whatever it is you like to do, like, do that thing that centers you and makes you feel good. And it empowered folks to do that. And then also because I didn't go to art school. I'm, an outsider artist, that I met other, what I would call them real artists, trained artists, after it filmed, and to get their, opinion on the art and, possible collaboration and things they liked. I was, you just kind of, if you're not in that world, you don't really think about it. You just, tootle on. So, yeah, it was fabulous. More would be good.
And to go off of that, saying like, obviously you started in your 50s doing art, is that correct?
Yeah.
How do you use your art as an expression, and like, what do all these individual things mean to you?
Well, that's a good question. So, I have a few things that I realized looking back that impacted me. One was a documentary called something like Exit the Gift Shop. It was done like in 2010. It was about all these graffiti artists, Banksy mostly, and I think that kind of simmered with me, going out and doing things in the night, and that actually appeals to me. And then what seriously impacted me was this woman she's an artist, and during Ebola, she came up with putting photos on hazmat suits, so that when people saw these hazmat people coming while they're in a deep fever dying, that they wouldn't be afraid. And I thought, what a huge amount of empathy that person must have in order to see that situation and then figure out a solution to be helpful, for kindness, to make it easier for the people that were experiencing that. And also it helped the people that were actually working in the hazmats, because then they had an identity, they had their face or their family on them. And I have to say, for months and months and months and months and months, I would go to bed thinking, what can I do with the skills that I have to contribute to some positivity in my neighborhood? Like, what can I do? And then I thought about, guitars on, putting guitars with messages on the poles. And guitars are universal to everyone, whether you're listening to Dan Fogelberg, who's he? Or, Metallica, the guitar is symbolic to everyone, to something they feel. So I thought, putting the guitar up with the message would be it. And then I decided, well, it'd be nice to have a character along with that. And so I would have the character up with the guitar, and it usually always had a friend, like an owl or something, because I guess I just naturally do that. Like everybody should have someone. And when I started putting them up in the neighborhood, after a while, I realized I don't have to have the guitar with the message. I just have to have the character that can relate to someone
Mhm.
in some way. And I always make them with big eyes, because we all look, with our eyes into our souls, that sort of thing. And they're mounted on poles so that they can actually look at the driver. So, they're tilted a certain amount of degrees. And that way, when you're driving and you go, oh, look at that, all of a sudden you just have this calm in your car. Because let's face it, when you're coming home from work or even a little bit of, a little bit of kindness on the way or a welcoming home is great. One day I was actually changing out a character. It got, I don't know if it got hit by a truck or what, but I was climbing the pole to take it down, and this woman came up, and I remember this was a red BMW, and she rolled down her window and she started yelling at me, "You put that back, you put that back. I need that. I need to see that every single day." It was a character that said laugh often. I said, "Oh, I'm just going to repaint it, make it real nice. I'll put it back up tomorrow. I swear to God."
That's awesome.
So that's why,
Okay.
that's it in a nutshell. That's it in a
Love it.
nutshell.
That's an amazing
It
story.
really means something to so many people now, and I'm grateful for that.
It's really interesting, Laurie. I mean, that's kind of why I make these films, like it was just to kind of try to contribute something like at a time where there was a lot of darkness, and, just trying to put a little bit of something positive out there.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
John, I have a question for you. So I'm pretty immersed in the queer community with doing this festival, but when Mello was talking about being trans mask but non-binary, that to me was a little, I never really thought about how there can even be a spectrum within the trans community.
Yeah.
And also, him being African American. Can you talk about the importance of that and having someone, portrayed and on screen that people can see?
Sure. I mean, I guess I always find it really hard to speak for someone else.
Yeah.
I just found their words are, their explanation is theirs. But for me, maybe I could talk about what I thought the story was, because I thought it was really shocking in that when we had our lunch, he told me that he had to come out 3 or 4 times, first as a lesbian, then as a trans person, then non-binary, and then talk about then sexually, to be pansexual. For me, it was like, wow, like I remember how hard it was for me to come out, and to think that to have to come out 3 or 4 times, I kind of think it was heartbreaking to me, So that's where I started. And once the story developed, I realized that wasn't the story. For me, it was more about his journey in finding himself, and also to find his happiness. And that was for me the story, where it came from, because I found it would be a little bit more, didn't want to go into the sensational.
Yep.
So for me, it was to be able to tell that his journey to find happiness within himself, to say that he couldn't look at himself in the mirror, for me was such a heartbreaking thing. And so I still get really emotional, even though I watch it 100 times editing, or how many more. Just that for me was the story. And that's where it's like, I came out 20 something years ago, and that was a difficult process for me. And to think now that you're like, the whole judgment again, the so many things that this person had to go through, and all for nothing, to be thrown out of his home because he was found out to be trans, to lose his job. These are things, and to have to fight for healthcare and all these things. It's just unnecessary and ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. What did Mello think when he saw the piece?
was really kind of like he said it was nice to be seen, and that's something that really really touched me because my work is often out there. I've been shooting, I've been creating since I was 18, and I didn't ever feel like that, and that's something that really impacted me. Yeah. And we stay in touch.
Awesome.
And so yeah, I mean, I stay in touch with most of the subjects from these short films. Yeah, but I really kind of saw them as moving portraits. That's the way I approach this.
I mean, obviously I haven't seen any other ones, but that really, again, I love the aesthetic of it. I really like from the first shot and just the really close-ups of him. I just thought it was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I muddled my way through it, so
You did a good job.
I'm not gonna lie.
Lori, was there any back and forth between you and Paige about talking about more of your childhood and, your parents, finding out that you were gay and kind of what happened with that? Was there any hesitation on your part to talk about it?
Yeah, because I was she's probably interviewing me for 6 months before that came out. It had something to do with I was telling a story and then I just said, stop, stop. I do not want this, I don't want you to put this in the documentary. And then she was like, well, what? And I said, well, because I'm gay, and I just assumed she knew. But she sees me, she sees my kids, she just, and I guess, I don't know. So I said, no, I didn't want anything in. I told her the story. She turned off the camera, and then it took a while, but what it was actually faith in how she handled it. She really has a big heart space, empathy. I don't know, maybe filmmakers have to do that to get that out of their folks, but she was quite lovely about it. And and after getting to know her for a year and a half, things change, right? So first you're talking to someone who's a stranger, and then you get to know about them, their family, you actually start to build a friendship. And so then it just became, I threw caution to the wind.
That's really, yeah. I mean, I guess I can really think about how over time, you get to know the filmmaker and you trust them, and you obviously trusted her with the overall story that she was doing. But I really thought that added something to the film, and I appreciated it.
It's a two-way thing, isn't it? There's a trust that has to kind of be built.
Yes. I trust her completely.
And, John, do you want to talk about, is there anything that you have going on now or in the future as far as films, or what continuing where Mellow might be going?
Yeah, well, Mello's been accepted into about 8 or 9 festivals now, so that's been really lovely. I have, like I said, so I've finished 4 other of these films. I'm going back to LA in 2 weeks, where I live, where my partner is at the moment, and so there's a bit of B-roll that I need to add to the other ones. I was really lucky with Mellow and where I only shot, like I said, them in a couple of hours. So once there are a couple of the stories that have revealed themselves, and the B-roll doesn't really match the stories. So I'm really happy to do that. I think I need to do an Australian story. I've been really wanting to do that because I've lived here for the last 7-8 months. So yeah, and I think I really want to wrap this up, but I've just been directing TV commercials, and which, it's really nice to get back working again after so long. Yeah.
Lori, what about you? Are you continuing to do this art? You could probably open like a art studio at this point with all the people that love your work. So where are you at with that?
I actually might be doing that, opening up my studio for people to come and see and do the art tour in the neighborhood, and then, come inside my studio and see all the art I have in my studio, which is I wish I had a bigger place.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've been working on that. I also, during the pandemic, I put up with a friend of mine about 120 basketball hoops throughout the neighborhood from here to Los Angeles and Venice area, and they were all made out of recycled material that was found in the alley. So we put up washing machines, carriages, furniture, you name it, became whoop, a hoop.
That's amazing.
With your kid and shoot, almost like miniature golf. But, I put up a wheelbarrow one.
Do you have a little map through the neighborhoods?
Also, I also go to the homeless camps, and I get, what happens at the homeless camps is that the bicycles appear in the camp, and then they're all disassembled and they're not put back together.
Mhm.
And I get those bicycle wheels, and I create art with the bicycle wheels, and I have a whole series of art that's in the neighborhood with bicycle wheels.
Mhm.
And, yeah, so I probably have about 20 or 30 of those going on, and they're all uniquely different.
I bet.
So, the art that comes out is prolific. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, is it bedtime? I don't want to go to bed yet. I got to do today. So it's like that every day. So, I definitely found my pace. I'm lucky enough that I can be retired and do what I want to do, and then share it with my community. I couldn't ask for more.
That's so amazing. Do you guys have anything else you wanna add at all?
Yeah,
No.
when you're in LA, drop by.
I was going to say, whereabouts are you?
I mean,
I'll connect you
come
guys.
to the West Side.
I'll connect you guys via email for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
No, I just wanted to also thank you for, I would actually like to know what your process was for selecting this film. Like you get 20,000 entries? Like, who saw this and said, oh, I think this would be good? Like,
I did actually. So we have a core programming team that, watches everything. And then if you greenlight something, then you always want a second or third opinion. The last few years, I've kind of taken over the Queer Docs shorts program, which I've really started to love. So I saw both of yours first, and then I was like, yeah, I'm putting them in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
They're both really just, you left watching them feeling good and happy, and it's just, that's more towards that I gravitate towards. So it was just really nice to be able to put these in.
Yeah, I think during the pandemic, I think to have some stories out there that, are hopeful and make you laugh, and, show the kindness of, a lot of humanity that's out there is what we need. So I think Paige
Just spread love and
really
some
brought
light,
that out.
I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So thank you again.
Thank you guys so much for hopping on, and happy Gabriel to everyone who's watching. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.